So on the Donald Trump crime front, New York State takes one step up, and the Department of Justice seems to take one step back. But do they really? Let's talk about that. Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So I'm back after a couple of days off. As you may know, I post these daily videos 7 days a week and have been for more than a year. So my wife and I finally decided it was time to take just a few days of downtime to recharge, re-energize. And I have to admit, it felt good, but I am really thrilled to be back with you all, particularly because there are a couple of stories that broke in the past 24 hours on the Donald Trump crime watch front, and I'm excited to talk about them. Now, I'm going to suggest that one of the stories is actually far less consequential than the other. The less consequential story is sort of the more infuriating on the surface. So the first story that I want to talk about is the fact that Merrick Garland's Department of Justice just appealed an order by federal court judge Amy Berman Jackson directing the release of an internal Department of Justice memo concerning the Mueller report. And when you read this story on the surface, it just kind of grabs hold of you and it shakes you and it frustrates you because it feels like there is a transparency deficit going on at the Department of Justice. But I'm going to suggest that's not really what's going on here. Of course, the second story we're going to talk about is the fact that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office just impaneled a special grand jury to get after Donald Trump and the Trump Organization. We'll finish up with that story, but let me start with the Department of Justice appealing Judge Jackson's order directing the release of an internal DOJ memo. I want to start with some reporting in Reuters, which kind of spells out exactly what we're dealing with here. Here's the headline. U.S. Justice Department appeals order faulting former U.S. Attorney General Barr, and that article reads in part, U.S. District Judge Amy Berman Jackson had given the Department of Justice until May 24th to appeal a decision she issued earlier this month that faulted Barr for how he publicly summarized Special Counsel Robert Mueller's 2019 report. As part of her ruling, she ordered the release of a related internal memo that Barr said he relied on in deciding how to handle the Mueller report. Now, I want to shift to some reporting by the Washington Post today about this same topic because I think it really clarifies what we're dealing with here. And that Washington Post article reads in part, earlier this month, Jackson issued a scathing opinion saying she had read the memo and that it showed Barr was disingenuous. I'm going to use a smaller, more precise word there. He lied when he cited the document as key to his conclusion that Trump had not broken the law. Okay, so what are we really dealing with here? I want to step away from the facts and I want to talk in a hypothetical for a moment, which is kind of based on all of the reporting and what we know, because I just want to make this point crystal clear. And it's hard because we haven't read the whole memo. But here's what you can tease out of the reporting. Hypothetically, a number of DOJ lawyers wrote a memo that said Donald Trump broke the law. This is the hypothetical. Bill Barr then stepped to the microphone and told the American people, Donald Trump did not break the law. And I'm relying on an internal Department of Justice memo that said that. You see where we're going here? And then Judge Amy Berman Jackson, when a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, was brought, said, I want to see the memo that Bill Barr said he relied on. And Bill Barr said, not showing it to you, Judge. And he fought tooth and nail to keep the judge from seeing that memo. She finally, figuratively wrestled it away from Bill Barr's grubby little hands. And she said, this memo doesn't justify your conclusion, Bill Barr, and I'm ordering it released. Right? So let's assume that is actually what's going on here. Here's the beautiful part, folks, because we're all frustrated by the Department of Justice fighting the disclosure of this memo now. But here's the thing. The memo, if you assume, let's stick with the hypothetical, that the memo said Donald Trump committed crimes. The memo's not the problem. The memo actually does enjoy something called a deliberative process privilege, if that's what the memo said. The problem isn't the memo, it's Bill Barr lying about the memo and saying the memo left me no choice. I had to conclude and I had to announce Donald Trump committed no crime. No, you didn't, because you lied about the memo. You were disingenuous about the memo. That's what Judge Jackson said. And that's why she ordered it released. Not because of the memo itself, but because of Bill Barr twisting it and lying about it. So here's the thing. The Department of Justice opposing the release of the memo, which actually probably does contain sort of deliberative process information that the Department of Justice has an institutional interest in protecting. The last thing Merrick Garland wants to do is throw up his hands and say, well, you know what, I'm not even going to invoke the deliberative process privilege. Just show it all to the people. Disclose it all. Because let's face it, moving forward, there may be times when Merrick Garland needs to legitimately invoke that privilege to try to keep stuff under wraps. And if he declines to fight it this time, they'll try to use that as atmospheric precedent against him the next time. Well, you didn't fight it back then. You have no right to invoke it now. So don't be so frustrated by this story, because I don't think the memo is the problem. I think Bill Barr's twisting of the memo is the problem. So releasing the memo is not really what is needed here. It's being able to prove Bill Barr lied, and we will get there. Because you think about it, there really can be only 3 reasons that Merrick Garland is appealing this order releasing the memo. 1, it's because he has an ongoing investigation into Bill Barr's misconduct. And he doesn't want this information, the entire memo, to get out before he can do what he needs to do to investigate Barr's possible crimes. Reason 1. Reason 2, Merrick Garland is actually trying to protect and preserve the Department of Justice's deliberative process privilege. And I should do a whole video in the future on why we have all of these privileges, right? Deliberative process privilege, executive privilege when people are advising the president, attorney-client privilege, doctor-patient privilege, clergy-parishioner privilege, spousal privilege. We have all these privileges because society wants to protect the sanctity of certain private communications so everyone can speak openly and freely and candidly and get the best advice or information they can without running the risk that it's going to appear, in the headlines the next day. There are lots of legitimate reasons to have these privileges, including a deliberative process privilege to promote the free exchange of ideas and opinions and positions, even controversial ones, to get at the best result. So the third possibility is that Merrick Garland is opposing the release of this memo just because he's trying to cover up Bill Barr's misconduct, protect Bill Barr, bury evidence of Bill Barr's crimes. That's not going on here, folks. So please have faith. Please have patience. I can see why the Department of Justice probably reluctantly decided it had to appeal this ruling. More to come, and we'll be talking more about that story in the future. Let's turn to the more consequential story, because the Manhattan District Attorney has impaneled a special grand jury to get after Donald Trump. So ordinarily, grand juries in Manhattan will sit for 4 weeks at a time and they'll hear evidence in all sorts of cases. Well, we just learned from some great reporting, I believe it was first in the Washington Post, maybe the New York Times. I'm sorry if I'm not getting the attribution correct. Actually, I do think we have a headline here. The headline is actually from ABC News, and it reads, Manhattan DA convenes special grand jury to decide on Trump indictment. So, the grand jury in New York, in Manhattan, ordinarily sits for 4 weeks at a time. This grand jury has been impaneled for 6 months, I believe 3 days a week, to hear evidence involving Donald Trump and the Trump Organization. There are so many data points now, folks, that lead to the conclusion that there will be indictments. We can't say it to a certainty, but I'll tell you what, I would bet $1, and I'm not a betting man, so $1 is my limit. I would bet $1 that there will be indictments, and I'd put the odds at about 1,000 to 1. Here are the data points. We already know many of them. We know that Vance, the district attorney in Manhattan, got a hold of Donald Trump's tax records and financial documents spanning 10 years. It took 2 trips to the Supreme Court, but he got them. We know Vance hired an expensive forensic accounting firm to go through them and look for evidence of crime. We know that Vance, the Manhattan district attorney, hired Mark Pomerantz, an expert former federal prosecutor, white-collar prosecutor, RICO prosecutor, to be part of the prosecution team. And now we know a special grand jury has been impaneled to consider indictments against Donald Trump. Donald Trump, the organization, others who've committed crimes will be indicted. I'd bet $1. Everything we see, slow going though it may be, everything we see coming out of the New York District Attorney's office these days is moving in the direction of justice. And justice matters. Folks, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. I am thrilled to be back with you, and we will be posting daily videos moving forward until justice arrives. I look forward to talking with you tomorrow, folks.